Have you ever stopped to think about what really happens when we leave this world? No, not the common answers that say, it's the end, or a great mystery, but something deeper and more detailed, capable of changing the way you live now. There is a book, considered by many to be a spiritual relic, which reveals step by step what happens after death. It is not just a curiosity for the spiritually inclined, but a veritable manual for understanding the soul's journey, and perhaps even escaping the endless cycle of rebirth. And here's a controversy: everything you think you know about the end of life could be wrong. This book explains that death is not the end, but a chance for transformation, moment to confront what we accumulated in life and decide our final destiny. Now think with me, what if you could prepare for this while you're still alive? Are we ready to face this transition, or are we postponing the inevitable? There are those who say that this wisdom is dangerous, that it should only be passed on to initiates. But the truth is that the teachings of the Tibetan Book of the Dead, or Bardo Todol, are available to anyone who has the courage to look beyond the surface. Prepare to discover secrets that few dare explore, from the moment the clear light appears to confronting karmic visions in the afterlife. If you thought death was just a straight line into the unknown, this book will surprise you. What's more, by understanding what he teaches, you can not only transform your view of death, but also learn to live with more awareness, purpose, and freedom. Ready to discover what most people never even imagine? So come, because the journey is just beginning. In Tibetan Buddhism, death is not seen as an absolute end, but as a moment of profound spiritual transition. Imagine this as crossing a bridge that separates two realities, one known and the other mysterious. The idea that life ends when the heart stops is too limited for those who study the Bardo Todol. For practitioners of this tradition, death is an extraordinary chance to achieve spiritual liberation, if the soul is prepared. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to see the end as a new beginning, instead of a definitive goodbye? During death, Tibetan Buddhism teaches that we encounter the clear light, a pure manifestation of our essence. It appears as a unique opportunity to recognize our true nature and escape the cycle of rebirth, samsara. However, many of us, trapped in fear and attachment, can turn away from this light, losing the chance to reach nirvana. And then the question arises, are we prepared to embrace this light, or will we run away from it due to ignorance? This transition is full of subtleties, but at the same time, it offers practical lessons for life. For example, practicing detachment in simple things, such as letting go of sorrows or material possessions, brings us closer to a mind more prepared for death. The act of meditating in silence, reflecting on the impermanence of life, is a way of becoming familiar with this transition. Try taking 5 minutes out of your day to observe your breathing and remember that everything is temporary, even the problems that seem eternal. Furthermore, the moment of death is not isolated, but is directly connected to the way we live. Buddhism encourages us to cultivate kindness, compassion, and wisdom, as these are the qualities that shape what we face after our last breath. Think about it, every choice, every action, is like a stone thrown into a lake, creating waves that will resonate in the Chikai Bardo, the initial stage of transition. Isn't it amazing to see how small daily attitudes can have such a profound impact? Finally, understanding death from this perspective leads us to question, are we really living or just existing? When we see life as an ongoing preparation for this great transition, each moment takes on new meaning. However, this is just the introduction to a fascinating universe, where the guide is none other than the Tibetan Book of the Dead, which explores this journey of the soul in detail. Are you ready to dive even deeper into this timeless teaching? The Bardo Todol, known in the West as the Tibetan Book of the Dead, is much more than a simple spiritual text. He is a practical guide for the soul traversing the mysterious territory of death. Imagine having a detailed map to navigate the unknown, with clear instructions for avoiding karmic traps and achieving spiritual liberation. This book is a gem, and its teachings are not only for those who are dying, but also for the living who seek to better understand life and death. Written under the inspiration of Master Padmasambhava, the book describes the different stages the soul goes through after death, known as bardos. These stages, Chikai Bardo, Koniad Bardo, and Sidpa Bardo, offer the opportunity to escape the cycle of rebirth, samsara. But be careful, to take advantage of these opportunities, the soul needs preparation, which leads us to reflect on how we live and relate to our spirituality while we are alive. The Tibetan Book of the Dead also teaches us about the power of karmic visions. During the Koniad Bardo, for example, the soul is confronted with reflections of its past life's actions. This is a crucial moment, where spiritual discernment can be the key to not getting lost in fear or illusions. And this isn't just theoretical. Many meditators suggest practices like contemplating your own behavior patterns or reflecting on your daily intentions to better prepare yourself for this confrontation. Interestingly, the book also has a very human and accessible aspect. It not only describes what happens after death, but also provides a manual for those who wish to help someone with their spiritual transition. Think of it as a compass that directs family and friends to guide your loved one's spirit toward the clear light. It is a reminder that our connection with others goes beyond matter and can be a channel of love and compassion, even in the most difficult times. However, what makes the Bardo Todal so unique is his optimistic outlook on death. No matter how turbulent someone's life has been, there is always the possibility of achieving spiritual liberation. This message inspires us to face life with more courage, knowing that the final transition can be a chance for a fresh start. And, of course, the next step on this journey is to meet the master behind it all, Padmasambhava, the founder of Sami Monastery and one of the most important figures in Tibetan Buddhism. Who was this man and why do his teachings resonate to this day? Imagine a master whose wisdom spans centuries, shaping an entire culture. This is Padmasambhava, known as Guru Rinpoche, who played a key role in introducing and adapting Buddhism to Tibet. He not only took Buddhist teachings but also integrated local spiritual practices, transforming what was a set of beliefs into a rich, deeply rooted tradition. His vision created the foundation of Tibetan Buddhism as we know it, and his legacy is celebrated in every corner of the country, especially at the legendary Sami Monastery. Padmasambhava is often described as an enlightened person who deeply understood the cycle of rebirth, samsara. For him, spiritual practice was not something reserved for cloistered monks, but a path accessible to everyone. His teachings emphasized the importance of meditation, detachment and preparation for death. Imagine applying this to your daily life. By practicing accepting change and letting go of the attachments that hold you back, you are already taking steps towards the inner freedom that Padmasambhava taught. Sami Monastery, founded under his guidance, is a physical and spiritual symbol of his legacy. Its construction is said to have been a battle between the human and the divine, with Padmasambhava summoning spiritual forces to overcome earthly challenges. The monastery became a teaching point for those seeking to understand the Bardo Todal and other sacred texts. Visiting Sami, even if only in thought, is like touching a piece of spiritual history that unites the past and present. But perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Padmasambhava is his role as a guide in the afterlife. He not only revealed the mysteries of the Chikai Bardo and the Koniad Bardo, but also taught us how to recognize the illusions of karmic visions. For the modern practitioner, this means understanding that life's difficulties are reflections of our own actions and emotions. In times of difficulty, for example, you might ask yourself, is this real or just a vision created by my conditioned mind? Padmasambhava also reminds us that spiritual learning is an ongoing process. He said that the path to enlightenment requires courage and constant practice. As we look at his legacy, we realize that he not only taught about death, but also about how to live fully. And it is at this point that the question arises, how can we recognize the purest essence of life and death, the famous clear light and use it as a key to liberation. Clear light is perhaps one of the most intriguing and transformative concepts in Tibetan Buddhism. Imagine an instant when all the masks fall and you find yourself in front of your purest essence, free from fears, attachments and illusions. This is exactly what happens at the moment of death, according to Bardo Todol. This light is not something external, but a manifestation of the divine nature that dwells in all of us. The challenge? Recognize it. Many, trapped in the cycle of rebirth, samsara, cannot identify it, missing a unique chance to reach nirvana. During Chikai Bardo, the soul has its first encounter with the clear light. It is a moment of spiritual liberation, but also of choice. Imagine someone who has lived their entire life in fear of the unknown. That person might retreat, scared, instead of embracing the light. This is why spiritual preparation while we are alive is so important. Simple practices, such as meditation and reflections on impermanence, help us recognize this light at the decisive moment. After all, if you don't prepare to recognize the essential now, how can you do it at the most important moment? The clear light also teaches us something profound about letting go. To recognize it, it is necessary to leave behind the ego, the identities we have built and even the most subtle desires. It's like abandoning heavy luggage to walk through a narrow door. Have you ever tried letting go of something that felt essential, only to find that it freed you? Whether it's forgiving someone or letting go of an ambition that no longer makes sense, each small act of letting go is a step towards the light. However, the recognition of the clear light is not just a spiritual event, it reflects how we live our daily lives. When we face problems, are we able to see the truth beyond the illusions created by our mind? This is something the Tibetan Book of the Dead encourages us to practice. Try, for example, when meditating, imagining yourself in a bright, empty space where nothing else matters other than the present moment. It is an exercise that brings us closer to that light and prepares us for the final encounter. But the journey does not end at the encounter with the clear light. Those who cannot recognize her are taken to the next stage, where they will face the karmic reflections of their lives in the Konyat Bardo. At this point, the soul is faced with powerful visions, sometimes terrifying, sometimes dazzling. Each vision is a reflection of what we accumulate in our actions, thoughts and emotions. And so, the question arises, what can these visions teach us about who we really are? In Tibetan Buddhism, the three bardas are like chapters in a book that describe the soul's journey after death. They not only explain what happens at each stage, but also offer lessons on how to prepare ourselves to face this journey. The first, known as Chikai Bardo, is the initial moment, when the soul encounters the clear light, the purest essence of being. It is a unique opportunity to recognize this light and achieve spiritual liberation. However, few succeed due to fear and attachment, highlighting the importance of spiritual practices in life. The second stage, the Konyat Bardo, is perhaps the most challenging. Here, the soul faces karmic visions that reflect its actions, thoughts and emotions accumulated throughout life. Imagine looking into a mirror that not only shows you who you were, but also who you chose to be. These visions can be terrifying or stunning, depending on what we carry inside. However, they are also illusory. To recognize this, it is essential to cultivate spiritual discernment in life, through practices such as meditation and detachment. In Sidpa Bardo, the soul prepares for a new rebirth or for liberation from the cycle of rebirths, samsara. It is the stage where the choices made previously become more evident. Attracted by desires and attachments, the soul can be led back to a new body, repeating the cycle. On the other hand, if there is enough clarity in detachment, there is a chance to escape this endless wheel. Think about how, even in life, our choices shape our trajectory. Every decision we make is a direct reflection of what we are ready to leave behind or carry with us. The three bards are not just metaphysical descriptions, they are metaphors for life. How often do we experience moments of confrontation, like in the Coniad Bardo, where we are forced to face our own actions? Or when we find ourselves on the brink of a new beginning, like in Sidpa Bardo, not knowing if we are ready for what comes next? This is why Tibetan Buddhism encourages us to use every moment as preparation. Meditating, reflecting on our actions and cultivating compassion are ways to be more aligned with these transitions. Understanding the three bards is like learning to navigate a turbulent river. The more you know the flow, the less you fight against it. These stages are a reminder that life and death are parts of the same, interconnected process. But are we living in a way that prepares us for these transitions? This reflection leads us to a crucial point. How can we use life as continuous spiritual training, a daily practice to face the challenges that await us? In Tibetan Buddhism, life is seen as constant training for death. There is no more precious time than now to begin preparing for the great transition that awaits us. This perspective may seem counterintuitive at first, but think about this: the more aware we are of our impermanence, the more full and meaningful our existence becomes. This practice is not something distant or complicated. It starts with small steps, such as cultivating meditation and practicing detachment in everyday situations. Meditation, for example, is a powerful tool for preparing for the bardas. When you sit in silence, focusing only on your breathing, you are simulating the moment when you will need to surrender to the clear light. This may seem abstract, but it is simple to apply. Try setting aside 10 minutes out of your day to observe your mind without judging it. Notice the thoughts that arise and practice letting them go, like leaves floating down a river. It's an exercise that, in addition to reducing stress, strengthens your ability to accept the inevitable. Another crucial aspect of this preparation is detachment. This does not mean giving up everything or living an austere life, but learning not to identify completely with what we possess or desire. For example, when we feel anger or resentment, we are holding on to those emotions, which creates more suffering. The act of forgiving someone, even if only internally, is a practice of liberation. Every time we let go of something that weighs us down, we are preparing ourselves for the moment when we will need to leave everything behind. Furthermore, living in harmony with the principles of Tibetan Buddhism teaches us to see each day as an opportunity for spiritual evolution. The concept of confronting karmic visions, explored in Coniad Bardo, reminds us that our actions shape our future experience. By acting with compassion and wisdom, we create positive ripples that reverberate far beyond this life. Think about it: every act of kindness is a seed planted in a field that transcends time. Finally, life as preparation for death is an invitation to live with more awareness and less fear. When we understand that death is just a transition, every moment of life becomes a gift. And now, the question that connects all of this arises: if death is a door to spiritual liberation, how can we use these teachings to live more fully? Perhaps the secret is recognizing that by preparing to die well, you also learn to live better. After all this, there is an inevitable question: how have you been living your life? Are you truly preparing for the greatest journey we will all face, or are you just letting time pass? The Bardo Todal teaches us that by preparing for death, we learn to live more fully. The question is, are you ready to look inside yourself and start changing today? Or will you wait for the moment when you no longer have control over what happens? Think about every decision you make, every attachment you carry, every emotion you insist on keeping. What can you do now to free yourself from these bonds? Maybe it's starting a meditation practice, reflecting on impermanence, or even forgiving someone who's been on your mind for a long time. Small actions like these can profoundly transform your perspective and prepare you to face the unknown with courage. And now I want to hear from you. What struck you most about this content? Do you believe you are ready to apply these lessons in your life? If the answer is yes, share it in the comments and inspire other people to follow this path. And if you still have questions, stay with us. this channel is a space to explore what is often left aside, but which is essential to living, and dying, better. Oh, and don't forget, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications and come learn more about the mysteries of life, death and everything in between. The next step on this journey is just a click away. So what are you waiting for?